Today we're going to dive into a really strange and frankly unsettling account. It seems to be a lost chapter from Lemuel Gulliver's travels, so get ready for a journey into a place they called the Republic of the Button.
Our story begins in what we believe are Gulliver's own words. He writes, "I arrived upon a vast continent whose inhabitants assured me with great pride that theirs was the most enlightened republic ever devised by human ingenuity." So we start in what they call an enlightened republic. Gulliver shows up in this, supposed utopia, a society that's convinced it has perfected the very idea of justice. But almost right away, he sees something that just doesn't make any sense.
He's in a coffee house and he sees a gentleman just casually press a small device. It's a simple, almost absent-minded little movement, kind of like flicking a crumb off a tablecloth. And then he hears this small, satisfying chime.
Gulliver, of course, is curious, so he asks the man what the device is for. The gentleman replies with what Gulliver describes as admirable cheerfulness. He just says, "Sir, when one presses the button, a modest sum of money is credited to the presser's account. At the same moment, a citizen somewhere in the Republic, one unknown to the presser, is removed from society." Just said with a smile, it's absolutely breathtaking.
Let that sink in. This entire society is apparently built on a single, elegant invention. One that directly connects your own financial gain to the elimination of a total stranger. How could a system like this even exist, let alone be celebrated?
Well, that brings us to the utility of the button. Because you see, the citizens didn't just put up with this system, they praised it. They saw it as this brilliant solution that got rid of all those tedious trials and expensive courts.
So, how does it actually work? Well, the whole thing runs on something called a reputation score. Every single citizen has a number attached to them. If that score drops low enough, they become eligible for what's chillingly called removal. And the very next person to press a button, anywhere in the country, well, they seal that person's fate.
And, the official reasons for it all sound disturbingly logical if you don't think too hard. The system drastically cut government spending, it encouraged civic engagement by making everyone a part of the justice system, and it stimulated the economy by moving money around with every single press. It's just a cold, perfectly utilitarian machine.
A statesman that Gulliver met, he summed it all up perfectly. He said, "The people have never been so industrious. Everyone presses diligently." That word diligently, it just drips with this dark, awful irony, doesn't it?
And of course, a system like this creates what they call the reputation market. I mean, if your actual survival depends on a score, you can bet a whole industry is going to pop up to manipulate it.
This system created a brand new kind of celebrity, or maybe an anti-celebrity. They called them a candidate. It's this chilling euphemism for a citizen whose reputation has just plummeted, usually because of some public scandal. They become a national target, making them totally ripe for removal.
Gulliver actually saw this happen. He describes this huge public spectacle where a shopkeeper got shamed on these giant screens, all for being a little rude to a customer. And as the crowd watched, they could literally see his reputation score just tanking. Public shaming had become a spectator sport. And the result? During that one broadcast about that one rude shopkeeper, several hundred people pressed their buttons. And as Gulliver notes, they did it with great enthusiasm. They weren't just participating, they were loving it.
So what does this kind of thing do to the psychology of an entire nation? They called it a contribution to health, but really it was a totally new kind of moral math. I mean, how do people just live their day-to-day lives in a society like this?
It created this central, horrifying contradiction. Outwardly, everyone was a model of politeness. I mean, people used delicate care and had excellent manners because they were terrified of losing points on their own score. But inwardly, they took this immense secret pleasure in the public ruin of their neighbors. Celebrating someone else's downfall, it was basically seen as a virtue.
This is captured just perfectly by a well-mannered lady Gulliver talks to. She tells him she presses her button every single morning with her tea. And her reason? It is my small contribution to the health of the Republic. It's like an act of civic duty, like sorting your recycling. So, how did they live with themselves? Well, their whole moral justification really stood on two main pillars. First, it's all anonymous. The victim is always a stranger, just an abstract idea. And second, the system is automated. The machine does the judging, which totally removes the burden of personal moral choice. They were all just cogs, pulling a lever in a vast, impersonal machine.
And this all leads to Gulliver's final, really unsettling reflection on what he called the horizon of justice, and what the true nature of this supposedly fair republic really was.
He noticed that for the citizens, the deaths caused by the button are kind of like storms at sea. You know, they're abstract, they're unfortunate events that happen to other people somewhere far away, way beyond the horizon. There's this complete psychological break from the consequences of their actions.
But Gulliver, he just couldn't shake one simple, terrifying thought. What if the unknown citizen selected by the machine was you? In a system so massive and so anonymous, couldn't a man press the button and, by some horrible twist of fate, end up removing himself?
But when he brought up this possibility, the citizens, they were just amused. They promised him the system was perfectly fair. And fairness, they said, was the highest virtue of their republic. And that's the truly chilling thought to leave you with. What happens when a society's definition of fairness becomes completely, totally detached from empathy?